Well, this is Media Monitor. Welcome back. And as you heard, so many stories that we have to really unpack this morning. And we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. But to give us more insight on this morning's discussions, we're pleased to be joined by Chief Executive Officer of Universities South Africa, Professor Ahmed Bawa. We also have media analyst Buchule, as well as SABC digital news producer Buchule Putini. Good morning and welcome to the show, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, Sakina. So, firstly, before we even get to digital and unpacking that, let's take a look at what the newspapers are leading with this morning. And starting with the Sunday Times, and this morning they're running with a story about education authorities who are to meet with universities as well as the EFF Student Command tomorrow in an effort to put the brakes on possible clashes this week when masses of aspiring students are set to descend on campuses across the country. And then City Press, they leading with the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. His backers are planning for him to take over the reins in the next few weeks, and they want him to deliver the State of the Nation address in February. The Sunday Independent today running with the story about Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's election as the new leader of the ANC, and that the party's entire top six could be set aside and the election rerun if an ANC KwaZulu-Natal leader gets his way. Now, the Sunday Independent further reveals that Ramaphosa and the newly elected top six, as well as the elections agency, which was contracted to facilitate and manage the ANC's voting processes, and one of its directors in her personal capacity, will be served with court papers this week by Vincent Nyeni, Msunduzi Sub-Region Ward 32's branch chairperson of the Moses Mabhida region. Looking at the Sunday Tribune, their lead this morning is a story about land conflicts on farms. Amid the land-related conflicts, Deputy Minister of Labour and Honorary President of the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, Controlesa Pategile Holomisa, fears that expropriation of land without compensation could be a recipe for war. And then the Weekend Argus, they leading with the story about free education. More questions being asked of the government's ability to fund free tertiary education for 2018, which is estimated to cost at around 12 billion rand. And that's what you can look forward to reading more about in the papers. But now let's shift focus and take a look at what the biggest hashtags were on social media this week with Buchule. It's been a busy start to the year.
It has been really, Sakina. At the top of our list, we have the matric results. Now, a lot of South Africans on social media have been congratulating the class of 2017, and it has achieved a 75.1% pass rate. This is a 2.6 increase from the 72.5 achieved by the 2016 class. Now, Minister NG Mutsecha announced that the overall matric pass rate in Auckland Park this past Thursday. Now, despite a decrease with the Free State, it remains the best performing province, followed by Gauteng. Let's take a look at what people are saying on social media. Now, Nomcebo Sibanda says, congratulations to all the matrics of 2017. I'm so proud of you. Hashtag matric results 2017. And Noloazi says, now that the matric results are improving every year, when are the universities or other tertiary institutions going to be built to accommodate all these brilliant new matriculants? We do not have enough tertiary institutions.
Let's pause there. Professor Bawa, when are some new universities going to be built? We know of the two that have come online,
yes.
But you know, in what state are they at this point, capacity-wise?
Yes, they're still very small, of course. They've just, they just opened doors. But the plan is to grow them over the next 5 years to substantial institutions. So there will certainly be a growth trajectory with those two institutions. But the other institutions are also looking at growth. In fact, the system is growing at about 1.2% per year.
And it absolutely has to. And I think there's always a temptation, Tebogo, to somehow, minimize the achievement of matriculants. And we should caution against that. But it's hard to when you think about studies that reveal that you have the majority of grade 4s who still can't read and count.
Absolutely. I think that our matriculants have done well. I think we've got a lot of potential out there that's being cultivated. And I think that if we are able to, try to create a process where we further train them into a field of their competency, we're going to see a lot of growth in the country.
And we absolutely have to. But Buchule, what else was trending?
So what else was trending was the train and truck collision. 19 people have been confirmed to be dead and 180 injured in the crash. Now, a train crashed with a truck, a Shosholoza mail truck, and PRASA has announced that they will open one line this morning between Port Elizabeth and Johannesburg. Now, people were sad by this, and Nosipho Shezi says, what a tragedy this is, an unnecessary loss of lives caused by a reckless person. At such a horrific scene, the truck driver deserves life imprisonment and for his license to be taken away. Hashtag train crash. And Skati Kumalo says, Nkosi Sikeleli Africa. Isabella Meyer says, hashtag pray for South Africa, train crash. May God comfort those mourning the loss of their loved ones.
Absolutely, and that was absolutely horrific, that train crash, and a terrible way to start the year, and one feels for those families, and our condolences go out to all.
Now, that was not the only tragedy that happened this past week. The hailstorm in Johannesburg. Mayor Mashaba has declared a local state of disaster after a storm that hit Protea Glen and other parts of Gauteng this past weekend. The cost of the damage caused by the storm is estimated at a cost of 186 million. Over 3,000 houses are said to be affected by the storm. Now, Mashaba says his risk assessment team continues to investigate these damages and they will give out a full report within 60 days. So on social media, people have been saying, Miss Momo says, this crazy Joburg hailstorm as the ancestors showing their displeasure at hashtag Afropunk handling of the whole Solange saga. I see people saw humor in it, but Claire 88ZA says, whoa, so aggressive hailstorm ever. Home, Johannesburg, heavy storm, raining, hail, slow motion. And Claire Taylor says, sure, that was a storm, Johannesburg. Hail was huge, hailstorm, storm, hashtag Johannesburg storm.
You gotta love South Africans though, Teboho. Just looking at that humorous tweet that we saw up first, and we always tend to find the humor in everything. But I tell you what I found quite fascinating, Mayor Herman Mashaba and his response. But more than his response was the people who have this almost sense of entitlement, and some would say that's been controversial, but why is this firstly the city's problem? Why do people not look to fix these things themselves? Well,
I think it's because they don't have the resources, to fix it themselves. You'll find that, one of our basic constitutional rights, and I think what's important in the Bill of Rights is that we do have a right to decent housing. And I think that perhaps it could be something that the city can look into, to assist, from a humanitarian perspective.
Yeah, it's just interesting that should be our first port of call. But just very briefly, any other major hashtags?
Yeah, definitely. Lastly, South Africa has been mourning two legends the past week. Firstly, Robbie Malinga, who is a veteran musician and producer. He died at the age of 49 on Christmas Day, and people have been saddened by his death and continue to celebrate his life on social media. Now, at Magwa Boys says RIP Robbie Malinga, and Dwakhta says RIP to the legend Robbie Malinga. And lastly, Snotano says, I'm still disturbed by the Robbie Malinga statue. My people always have to take things to the extreme. Hashtag RIP Robbie Malinga.
Absolutely.
And the second legend that has passed on is Professor William Khotsitsile, popularly known as Brawili. Yeah, he passed on this past week as well, and President Jacob Zuma has declared a special official funeral for the late author and poet. He announced this Saturday night.
And of course, the nation is poorer for it.
Yeah. On social media, at Hilt says RIP Kiurapetse Khotsisile. Kyle says We are not strangers to the end of peace. We have known women widowed without any corpses of husband, because the road to the mines, like the road to anywhere, is long and littered with casualties, even those who still walk and talk. Now, yeah.
You know, and I guess that will still continue, the outpouring of grief for the poet laureate of this country. But of course, questions surrounding the free higher education will continue as tertiary institutions prepare for free higher education enrollments, and that and more coming up after the break.